My name is Beendigen, and I've been teaching a few ladies how to make moccasins and a few men. Moccasins, when you think of moccasins and you think of it historically, moccasins were the form of footwear for all Aboriginal people, Indigenous people. They now, of course, in modern day, moccasins are more used as a slipper. And you'll still find some of our elders who do go on the trap line will still wear a bush-style moccasin when they go into the bush wearing their snowshoes. But for the most part, they are now a form of a slipper. Moccasins traditionally were, of course, made with the hides of the moose or elk. Traditionally, the moccasins would have been made tanning the hides using brain from the animal. There's tannic acids in the brain of the animal, which would have been used to tan and soften the hides. The smoking of the hides would have been smoked over rotted tamarack wood, and you would have got your color in the hide. Otherwise, they would have been more of a white hide. So to get color, you smoke it over the rotted tamarack. The length of time you smoke it will give it the color that you're looking for. The sewing of moccasins traditionally would have been sewn with the animal tendon, which is sinew. Sinew that would have been taken from the spine or the leg of the animal, and the tendon would have been pounded down into fine sewing threads. The needles would have been a fine bone that was taken from a marten, or from, as well as the deer or the moose, you can get a bone, a fine bone, that was used as an awl to make your holes in your leather. That's more the traditional way of making the moccasin. Today, in modern moccasin making, we use what's called a Glover needle, which is a 3-point diamond point needle, three-point tip on the needle. And so it helps with the ease of going through your layers of leather. Usually we're working between three and four layers of leather to sew through. The moccasins, usually to make a pattern, all you need is somebody's foot tracing. Trace the base of the foot, around the base of the foot, take that pattern, and you're able to make the pattern of a moccasin using that tracing. You're going to make your base, your bottom, and then you're going to make your what's called the tongue of the moccasin, which is your top. And usually the top of the moccasin tends to be beaded.
So these little markings here, you have to line them up, so then you're going to have to just sew them together, like here, here, and then here, right? That's just to start.
If you think of modern day and historically, the amount of beadwork put in our work would have been dependent on whether it was going to be used for ceremonial purposes or whether it was going to be used for everyday use. Anything that was used for everyday use, you would have a little bit of design work on it, but not very much. Something as heavily beaded as this would be something that was used more for ceremonial purpose. With the beadwork, again, focusing on sort of the historical part of the beading, our beadwork would have been done with very fine beads that were traded once the fur trade came into play in Canada. We were able to trade for seed beads. Prior to that, our beadwork was done not with just beads, it was done with different parts of the animal that we had, or different shell and things that we gathered. So more natural things that we gathered in the bush. With the fur trade, we were able to then trade for the seed beads, which we can utilize in our beadwork. A lot of these skills of sewing, of doing beadwork, the women would learn at a very young age. And they would usually learn these skills by making dolls and the clothing for the dolls. So the girls would learn the skills that way, starting quite young. It would not only help them to provide for their family, but it also assisted in developing patience, which is something that all people need. And so sitting down and being able to do that fine detailed beadwork, like what you see in some of the pieces here, you're developing those skills as you're doing the work that you're doing. The other part that we're trying to introduce to our young people today is the importance of being able to provide for your family. Incorporating some of the traditional knowledge and the traditional teachings that have been passed from one generation to the next. We try to pass those on to our young people so that they can not only carry on that tradition and that knowledge and the understanding of how we harvest, how we utilize every part of an animal to have a product at the end. We're trying to extend those messages out to our young people today. So that's a big part of why I do the workshops, why I try to teach some of these things, so that we're carrying on those traditional knowledge through our artwork. Now it's called artwork.